Hey everyone, let me start with something personal. I've been a One Piece fan for several years now. Yes, I started late compared to many of you. And you know what fascinates me the most to this day? It's not the insane battles, it's not even the unforgettable characters or the massive plot twists. What truly blows my mind is the fact that this single manga, drawn by one man from Japan for nearly 3 decades, has captured the hearts of the entire world. Over 600 million manga units sold. That's not just success, that's a wonder for me. The anime has been running since 1999 and now has around almost 1,200 episodes with no signs of slowing down. Today, almost everyone on this planet recognizes the Straw Hat crew, or the Straw Hat itself, from the bustling streets of Lagos to the crowded metros in São Paulo, from remote villages in Indonesia to the suburbs of Paris and even in the neighborhoods of Berlin. From young Arabs in Dubai, from Italian grandmothers watching the movies with their grandchildren, to everyone out of this world, One Piece has reached everyone. I'm completely honest. I'm so excited, not just of the story itself, but of the miracle around. How can one Japanese manga penetrate so deeply into every single culture, regardless of religion, history, economic status, or social background? Today, I don't want to repeat the usual friendship is power stuff you have heard 1,000 times. Instead, I want to truly explore and share my opinion. How is this even possible? How does one Japanese story manage to cross cultural, religious, linguistic, and societal boundaries so effortlessly? Look at the spread. In Japan, One Piece is obviously massive, but it's an absolute evergreen in Thailand, the Philippines, India, Nigeria, Mexico, France, Russia, and countless other countries. In some nations, One Piece is even discussed in schools as part of literature or ethic classes. In others, it serves as a powerful symbol for resistance. The Straw Hat flag appears at protests against corrupt governments. Luffy has become an icon of freedom and rebellion for countless young people. All those characters have helped people to get through incredible dark times. Let's talk about numbers again. Over 600 million manga units are sold, as I told you already. The best-selling comic in human history. This is an era where attention spans are shrinking dramatically. Yet people still binge hundreds of episodes and reread arcs multiple times. But it's not just about sales or viewership, it's about real cultural presence. In Latin America, the Straw Hat flag is waved during protests against corruption. In Africa and parts of Asia, Luffy represents hope against oppressive systems. In Europe, fans deeply appreciate the philosophical layers. And in Japan, it's basically natural treasure status. How is this possible? I mean, Star Wars, for example, achieved something similar, sure. But Star Wars had the full power of Hollywood studios and massive marketing machines behind. And it's not even that deeply integrated as One Piece. It was, from One Piece, one guy at his desk, sleeping too little, drawing insanely detailed world maps and storyboards. Here's what I consider the core reason for its success, something that's still not talked about enough. One Piece doesn't feel like a made-up story. It feels like a real, breathing, living world. Oda created something I like to call radical world immanence. Every island, every kingdom, every city has its own centuries-long history, its own conflicts, prejudices, unique problems, heroes and enemies. And the most amazing part, the world keeps turning even when the Straw Hats are somewhere else. Most stories treat their world as a backdrop for the hero's journey. In One Piece, Luffy is just one more element in a world that was already wild and alive long before he arrived. This creates an incredible sense of depth and realism that very few fictional universes ever achieve. This deeply resonates with us humans. We are wired to think in complex social systems, communities, and ecosystems. One Piece gives us exactly that, only bigger, more beautiful, and far more hopeful. That's why it works across completely different cultures. A boy growing up in a strict Muslim family in Indonesia can connect with the themes of freedom and dreams just as strongly as a girl in Sweden or a factory worker in Brazil. Because the world of One Piece isn't Western, Eastern, modern, or traditional, it's fundamentally human. It doesn't preach, it shows. It shows corruption, power structures, how systems break people, and how individual dreams can still challenge and change those systems. Another aspect that makes One Piece truly special is how masterfully it balances heart-wrenching tragedy and liberating laughter. Many backstories are brutal, they break your heart. Yet just moments later, someone drops an absolutely ridiculous joke or Luffy says something completely brainless, and you find yourself laughing with tears still in your eyes. This isn't cheap contrast, it's deeply philosophical. Real life is tragicomic. The most beautiful and painful moments often happen at the same time. Most stories separate them strictly, either pure drama or pure comedy. One Piece says no, both belong together, that is the real life. This permission to feel both intensely, without separating or suppressing them, makes One Piece almost therapeutic for so many people. It allows us to be sad and still laugh. This is especially powerful in cultures where emotions are heavily suppressed. It gives people permission to feel everything without shame. Now to what might be the deepest reason of all. One Piece is one of the most radical freedom stories ever told. It's not the shallow I do whatever I want kind of freedom. It asks a much more dangerous question. Which dream are you willing to defend against the entire world? Luffy wants to become the king of pirates, not for gold or power, but because he seeks the ultimate freedom. Almost 1,200 episodes, Oda shows us how brutally the world tries to shrink people's dreams through governments, social expectations, fear, and oppressive systems. This is universal. Whether you grow up in a high-pressure Asian society, a religiously conservative culture, in poverty, or in a Western individualistic world, the tension between your dream and what the world expects from you exists everywhere. One Piece doesn't preach blind rebellion, it says something wiser. Figure out what's worth risking everything for, then stand up for it, laughing with your head held high. That message crosses every cultural boundary. Oda once said that at some point the characters start writing the stories themselves. It sounds almost mystical, but I believe it's the key. He built a world framework so rich and detailed that it became almost autopoietic. It generates itself like a living organism. As viewers, we feel this world is truly real. That's why we can stay invested for nearly 30 years without getting tired. But you know what's truly insane? One Piece didn't stay inside the screen or on the pages. It has completely infiltrated our real world in the most absurd and wonderful ways. I mean, walk through any major city and you will see it. One Piece themed cafes in Tokyo, Bangkok, Dubai, and even Berlin. Restaurants where you can order Sanji's all-blue dishes, stores packed with throat flats, wonder posters, and realistic devil fruits. There are massive collaboration with fashion brands, fast food chains, beverage companies, sneaker brands, the gaming industry, and even luxury watchmakers. One Piece has become a full-blown lifestyle. Then let's talk about the Netflix live-action series. I know many were skeptical at first, but it introduced millions of completely new people to the world of One Piece. Whether you loved it or had some criticism, it lowered the barrier to entry. Suddenly, people who had never touched manga or anime were sitting in front of their TVs getting hooked. Add to that the movies, the games, global events, concerts, exhibitions, and more. One Piece is truly everywhere. It has quietly slipped into our daily lives. And it's impossible to imagine the world without it now, isn't it? What touches me the most are the incredible values One Piece has been teaching for decades, without ever feeling preachy or forced. At its core, it's about real friendship, unbreakable loyalty, and the courage to stand up for what you love. It's about accepting differences, whether in race, background, appearance, or abilities. Every member of the Destroyer crew has their place. Everyone is needed. In a time when many societies feel increasingly polarized, lonely, and lost, One Piece gives especially young people something incredibly valuable: a sense of grounding and direction. It shows that it's okay to be different, that fighting for your dreams is heroic, even if the whole world calls you crazy. It teaches that true strength isn't about being the strongest alone, it's more about protecting others and growing together. Many teenagers find in One Piece the positive values that are sometimes missing at the school, in families, or on social media platforms. Responsibility, empathy, and the deep belief that one person can change the world, can change your world. Whenever I talk about One Piece, I always come back to an almost philosophical realization. In a world that is becoming more complex, faster, and more fragmented, a world where people increasingly mistrust each other, Ichiro Oda has created something that fulfills one of humanity's oldest longings: the longing for a grand, meaningful story where friendship, freedom, and dreams still matter. One Piece is a modern epic. It connects people across continents, languages, and cultures because it appeals to what unites us all: the deep human desire for freedom, and to be part of something greater than ourselves. Perhaps this is the most beautiful proof that we know there are no borders. That one honest vision, pursued consistently for nearly 30 years, can be more powerful than all marketing budgets in the world combined. One Piece shows us the Grand Line doesn't just exist on a paper, it lives inside each of us. And as long as there are people crazy enough to chase their dreams, like Oda did and Luffy still does, the world will remain a little more magical.